Guns are everywhere in America. In fact, the U.S. has more guns and gun deaths per capita than any other country in the world, according to a small arms survey. In April, a bill aimed at expanding background checks on firearm sales to better detect buyers ineligible to own guns failed in the Senate, 6 votes shy of what was needed to advance. Many credit its failure to the campaign waged against it by the National Rifle Association. The campaign saw their 5 million members mobilized and team of lobbyists to pressure lawmakers and defeat the bill. This, coupled with upcoming midterm elections in 2014, perhaps caused some Democrats up for re-election to vote against the measure because they represent red, gun-loving states. Sean Sullivan is an NRA member who keeps guns in his home to protect his family. His enthusiasm for firearms and gun rights even prompted him to write to his congressman.
Democrats from rural states understand that when it comes to Second Amendment rights and the right to own firearms, when that is challenged and when people start talking about restricting gun ownership in any way, they understand that a lot of their constituents, especially from the rural states, vote on that issue and that issue only.
Because gun owners in America like Mr. Sullivan tend to be much more outspoken than those seeking gun control, being anti-firearm could be enough to end a career in politics. Not only does the pro-gun movement show more enthusiasm, records show they spend more money lobbying. The NRA spent $15 on elections for every $1 spent by the gun control lobby, according to data from Center for Responsive Politics. Matt Gorman is the former director of the Office of Business Liaison during the Clinton administration. He's also pro-gun control. He explains another reason why he thinks the bill failed.
First of all, I think it's the NRA. They have a huge budget and they have the politicians in their pockets. I know how politics is influenced by money. And the NRA gives a lot of money, and people unfortunately prefer to be reelected.
An estimated 50% of homes have guns in them, according to George Washington University law professor Robert Cottrell. He explains that many gun owners fear their Second Amendment rights might be infringed with the legislation.
There was a fear that the background checks would be used for registration of firearms. If we know that an individual has bought a certain firearm on a certain day, we then have a record, and then when the time is right, you use that to basically confiscate firearms.
In America, you're only required to go through a background check when buying from a federally licensed dealer. This means that through private transactions, just about anyone can buy a gun, no background check necessary. And from a public health perspective, many are not okay with this.
Only a fraction of the people who actually purchase guns purchase through a licensed gun dealer. So from my perspective, it's very important that those transactions be subject to universal laws, universal background checks.
I'm at the NRA headquarters in Fairfax, Virginia. The NRA did not respond to any calls or emails regarding this matter. However, in a written statement, they said, this amendment would have criminalized certain private transfers of firearms between honest citizens, requiring lifelong friends, neighbors, and some family members to get federal government permission to exercise a fundamental right or face prosecution. As we have noted previously, expanding background checks at gun shows or elsewhere will not reduce violent crime or keep our kids safe in their schools. So, what will keep our children safe? The NRA recommends arming school teachers, and Professor Cottrell doesn't rule it out.
I see no reason if a teacher goes through the proper training and whatnot. Now, some people kind of recoil at that in horror, but stop and think about it. A teacher is a university graduate, usually will have had graduate training, has had training in psychology and understanding human behavior.
Many, including Mr. Gorman, disagree, saying it would make schools less safe, but some teachers are more than willing. Timothy Ralph is one high school teacher in Colonial Heights, Virginia. He's also a licensed gun owner. He says he wouldn't be comfortable with the majority of his colleagues carrying guns on school property, but he would be more than willing to with proper training.
I don't think they should allow any Joe Blow to go into be able to carry their gun into a school and just say, hey, teachers are allowed, if you have a permit, you can carry your gun. I think it would be beneficial in some. I've already made it my point clear that I would be more than happy whatever training, that they see fit.
Guns are accepted as part of America's culture and heritage. But does it also now mean we've accepted gun violence?
We've come to accept a very high rate of gun violence in this country that for many of us is unacceptable. But there's sort of, I think, this perception that it's not so bad and why are you focusing your attention on this? But I'm also quick to point out that when you look outside the U.S., the rates look much, much different.
So what does this mean for reform in Washington and the success of the NRA?
At the federal level, they've been a very successful group in protecting the things they believe in and securing them against adverse legislation.
While the gun debate has cooled off, it's only a matter of time before it resurfaces. In the meantime, both the NRA and its opposition must come up with new ways to win over Washington. Elizabeth Compson, City News International.